Hi, enjoy listening. Claire Morrison sat in her downtown office, the hum of the air conditioning the only sound in the late afternoon. Her desk was immaculate except for a single silver-framed mirror, tilted just enough to catch her reflection. She leaned in. The face staring back was still beautiful. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes the colour of warm coffee. But there was a hint of fatigue there too. It had been a long week. The property deal she'd been negotiating was brutal, with 2 months of tense back and forth, but it had finally closed. Still, that wasn't what was on her mind. Her phone screen lit up with a Facebook message from a name she hadn't seen in years, Megan Caldwell. Claire hesitated, then opened it. "Hey Claire, we're organising a 10-year high school reunion on June 17th. Everyone's chipping in $75 to cover dinner and drinks. We'd love to see you. Details on the venue soon." Claire blinked. 10 years? She turned in her chair, her eyes landing on the calendar pinned above her desk. The date was circled in blue pen, though she hadn't even noticed before. A faint, humorless smile tugged at her lips. The first tear fell before she could stop it. Not the nostalgic kind, but the kind born of memories she'd buried so deep she thought they'd never surface. High school hadn't been a golden era for Claire. In fact, it had been the loneliest, cruelest chapter of her life. Just thinking about it made her shoulders tense. She remembered the whispered jokes, the sideways glances, the laughter that always seemed to stop just as she walked into the room. She scrolled up to look at Megan's profile picture. The girl who used to be the prettiest in their class now looked ordinary. Her hair was duller, her smile a little forced. 28 isn't old, Claire thought, but it's showing on her. The idea of going or not going took on the weight of a life decision. It was almost Shakespearean, to be or not to be. And then her mind clicked. Of course I'm going, she thought, her lips curving into a real smile for the first time that day. Not just going. I'm going to show them exactly who I am now. She didn't yet know the details of the surprise she was already plotting, but she knew it would tie directly to her past, the part they thought had broken her. The part involving one particular boy she had once adored, the boy who had humiliated her worse than anyone else ever had. Claire leaned back, letting herself slip into the current of memories. Even though she knew they'd hurt, she saw flashes, her mother's face, her old apartment, the nights they ate pasta 3 times a week because it was the cheapest meal. Back then, no one knew the full story of Claire Morrison, and she had never wanted to tell it. But maybe it was time they learned. Claire had always hated the phrase before and after. People used it to talk about weight loss, home renovations, or makeovers. For her, those 2 words marked the day her childhood ended. Before, a small 2-bedroom apartment in a working-class neighbourhood. Her father, Paul Morrison, coming home smelling faintly of motor oil, wrapping her in a bear hug before he even took off his boots. Her mother, Linda, making grilled cheese in the tiny kitchen, humming off-key to the radio. Claire was 5, and the world felt safe. After, a knock on the door that made their elderly neighbour, Mrs. Kerrigan, go pale before she even opened it. A state trooper in a brimmed hat, speaking softly, using words a little girl wasn't meant to understand. Collision, fatal, impaired driver. Paul had been killed instantly when a drunk driver drifted into his lane. Linda survived, but barely. The windshield had shattered, embedding glass deep into her face and eyes. The surgeries saved her life, but not her sight. Claire was at her grandmother's when it happened, building a lopsided Lego house, oblivious to the fact that her own home had just been demolished by fate. When her aunt came to pick her up, Claire had asked, "Where's Mum and Dad?" The answer was a shaky, "They'll see you soon, honey," though even then, something in her knew that wasn't true. The hospital was a blur of antiseptic smells and beeping machines. She remembered the sound of her mother's voice more than her face, because her face was wrapped in gauze. When Linda heard her daughter's footsteps, she reached out blindly, trembling. "Claire, baby!" The little girl had hesitated. The bandages scared her. She wanted to run. But then she felt her mother's arms, still strong, and heard the muffled sobs. From that moment on, Claire understood something most children never have to. Her mother needed her now, not the other way around. They survived on Linda's disability checks and occasional help from Linda's sister, Marlene, who made it clear she had her own life to live. She visited less and less until she stopped altogether. It was their neighbour, Mrs. Kerrigan, who kept them afloat in those first months, bringing over casseroles, helping with laundry, teaching Claire how to braid her hair before school. By 8 years old, Claire could cook pasta, shop for groceries, and help her mother navigate the sidewalks with a cane. She learned to keep their small apartment neat because they couldn't afford for it to look poor. Money was always the shadow in the room. Clothes came from thrift stores or church donations. Birthdays meant homemade cupcakes, not gifts. Claire's school lunches were peanut butter sandwiches so many days in a row she stopped being hungry for them. She didn't complain. She didn't tell anyone. But kids notice, and by middle school they used it against her. The first comment came in 6th grade. A boy named Trent, who lived in the nice part of town, pointed at her coat in the hallway. "Did you find that at Goodwill?" he smirked. The truth was yes. But the worst part wasn't that he guessed, it was that he was right. She told her mum that night that everything at school was fine. Linda smiled, relieved. But Claire saw the worry in her mother's blind eyes. She decided then that she would handle it alone. She didn't know yet how cruel it would get. By 8th grade, the teasing wasn't just casual jabs. It had become a sport. The worst of it came from a tight little circle Claire thought of as the Sharks. They moved together through the hallways, always scanning for weakness, and Claire, quiet, studious, dressed in second-hand sweaters, was their favourite prey. At the centre was Megan Caldwell, blonde, confident, with that effortless kind of beauty that looked like it came straight out of a teen magazine. Megan had been the undisputed queen of their class since elementary school. Her entourage consisted of Brooke Jennings, tall and sarcastic, and Haley Simmons, whose laugh could slice through the air like a blade. They didn't go for the obvious insults, not right away. Megan preferred the slow bleed, the "oh my God, I love your vintage skirt" kind of compliment that wasn't really a compliment at all. "Claire, that's so retro," Megan said one Friday in the cafeteria, drawing out the last word like she was savoring it. "Where'd you get it? Your grandma's closet?" Brooke and Haley laughed on cue. Claire pretended not to hear, focusing on her sandwich, willing her face not to flush. But the sharks weren't the only problem. There was another layer to Claire's misery. A boy. His name was Ryan Bishop, son of a local real estate developer, captain of the soccer team, with an easy smile and just enough scruff to look older than 17. Claire had fallen for him in that ridiculous, hopeless way teenage girls do. She'd watch him from across the library, or when their lockers happened to be near each other between classes, imagining conversations they'd never have. Of course, Ryan ran in Megan's circle. He dated her briefly freshman year, and even though they'd broken up, he still partied with her and her friends. Claire told herself it didn't matter, that crushes were harmless. But then, in the months before graduation, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, Ryan wasn't like the rest. He'd smiled at her once in math class when she'd helped him with a problem. He'd even said, "Thanks, Morrison," like he meant it. She clung to that tiny shred of kindness. The bullying ramped up before prom. Claire had saved for weeks from babysitting jobs to buy a simple, pale blue dress from a clearance rack. She thought it was pretty, not flashy, but flattering. When she walked into the school gym for the senior awards night, she felt almost confident. Until she heard Megan's voice. "Oh my God, that is so brave of you to wear that." Claire froze. Ryan was standing right next to Megan, a red plastic cup in his hand, his eyes flicking over Claire's dress. He didn't say anything, but the smirk that tugged at his mouth said enough. Brooke chimed in. "It's giving Goodwill Princess." The laughter around them was like a wave crashing. That night, Claire went home and swore she would never forget it. She swore she would never forgive it. But the real breaking point was still coming. On the night she'd been looking forward to for years. Prom night was supposed to be a turning point. Claire told herself she didn't even care about the dance. But the truth was, she'd been quietly dreaming about it for months. Maybe years. She wasn't expecting a fairy tale, but she wanted just one night where she could feel like she belonged. Like she was more than the invisible, awkward girl with thrift store clothes. She bought her dress in secret, a soft champagne colour that shimmered under the light. The fabric hugged her waist and flared slightly at the bottom. Nothing too dramatic. But when she tried it on at home, she almost didn't recognize herself. Her mum, tired from a double shift, had smiled and said, "You look beautiful, honey. Really." Claire had smiled back, but inside, she hoped someone else might notice too. When she arrived at the ballroom of the local Marriott, her heart was pounding. The place was strung with fairy lights, the air thick with perfume and cologne. Clusters of laughing couples twirled across the dance floor, and a DJ blasted the kind of music you could feel in your ribs. For a little while, it was okay. She chatted with a few classmates who weren't exactly friends, but weren't cruel either. She even danced once, awkwardly but without humiliation. Then Megan appeared. Claire saw her before she heard her, gliding in with Brooke and Haley on either side, wearing a glittering silver dress that looked like it belonged on a runway. And right behind them was Ryan Bishop, laughing at something Brooke had said. Claire told herself to just stay out of their way. But somehow, they always found her. "Claire! Oh my God! Love your dress!" Megan gushed, her tone sticky sweet. "You look like a bridesmaid at her own prom!" The girls snickered, and Claire felt her cheeks heat. Ryan's eyes flicked to her, and he smirked. Not cruelly, but like he was in on some joke she didn't understand. She should have walked away, but she didn't. The night was unraveling when the slow song started. Claire stood near the drink table, sipping flat soda, watching couples sway under the soft lights. She wasn't expecting anyone to ask her to dance. Then Ryan was there. "Hey, Morrison," he said, casual, hands in his pockets. "Wanna dance?" For a second, she thought she'd misheard. But he was looking right at her. Her heart soared. She said yes. They danced, if you could call it that. More like a slow shuffle. But to Claire, it was perfect. She could smell his cologne, feel the heat of his hand on her waist. For 3 minutes, the sharks were nowhere, and she let herself believe this might be the start of something. When the song ended, he leaned in and whispered, "You should check the bathroom mirror." She blinked, confused. "Why?" He grinned. "Just trust me." She went to the restroom, and when she pushed open the door, 3 girls she barely knew burst into laughter. Claire turned to the mirror and froze. Across the back of her dress, in thick black marker, someone had scrawled, "Free ride." Her chest went cold. Her mind replayed the dance, the way Ryan's hand had rested on her back, the way Megan had been watching from across the room. She stumbled out of the bathroom, fighting the tears. On her way to the parking lot, she passed Megan, Brooke, Haley, and Ryan. Megan smirked. Ryan didn't even look at her. Claire cried the whole way home. But somewhere between the sobs, she made a quiet, burning promise. One day, they'd regret ever knowing her name. Claire Morrison was no longer the quiet girl who slipped through high school hallways unnoticed. She stood in the mirrored lobby of the Linden & Cole corporate headquarters, her reflection almost unrecognizable from the girl who'd left the prom in tears a decade ago. Her hair was sleek now, cut to her shoulders, her makeup subtle but flawless. She wore a tailored navy suit and carried a leather portfolio that matched her heels. Everything about her said, "I belong here." But Claire hadn't just landed here. She had clawed her way up. After graduation, she'd moved out of her small town with 2 suitcases and $700 in savings from bussing tables. While her classmates posted college party photos on Facebook, she was working 2 jobs and taking night classes in business administration. She'd learned quickly that the world didn't hand second chances to girls like her. You had to make them. By 25, she had her degree. By 27, she was managing accounts for high-profile clients. Now, at 28, she was a senior consultant at one of the fastest-growing marketing firms in the city. The pay was good. The view from her office was better. But the power, the ability to make or break someone's image, that was the real prize. This morning, she was reviewing the firm's newest potential client file when the name stopped her cold. Ryan Bishop. Her pen hovered over the page. He was now the co-owner of a chain of boutique gyms that were looking to expand statewide. His company needed a rebranding campaign, and the account was potentially worth 6 figures. The last time she'd seen him, his hand had been on her back, pressing her into that slow dance, while the words "free ride" dried in black ink across her dress. Claire leaned back in her chair, a slow, almost dangerous smile forming. 2 hours later, she was in the conference room when the clients arrived. Ryan walked in first. He'd aged well, still tall, athletic, with that same easy grin. But there was a faint wrinkle at the corner of his mouth and something a little more tired in his eyes. For a second, he didn't recognize her. Then his smile faltered. "Claire Morrison?" he said, almost like a question. "That's right," she said evenly, standing to shake his hand. Her grip was firm, her expression unreadable. "It's been a long time." Megan followed in behind him. Claire hadn't expected. Megan looked different. Expensive blonde highlights, designer dress, but the same cool confidence in her walk. She was introduced as the company's director of brand partnerships. And just like that, Claire realized something. This wasn't just business. This was fate. By the time the meeting ended, Claire knew 2 things. Ryan's company was struggling more than they'd let on, and Megan clearly didn't think Claire had the power to decide their future. That was their first mistake. Claire spent the rest of the afternoon in her office, the blinds half closed, letting the late summer light stripe across her desk. The client file for Bishop&Vale Fitness lay open before her, every page annotated with neat, deliberate handwriting. The numbers told a story Ryan and Megan had tried to gloss over in the meeting. Membership growth had plateaued, expansion costs were eating into reserves, and 2 of their 3 new locations were underperforming badly. Without a strong rebrand and aggressive marketing push, they'd be looking at layoffs within the year. Claire traced a finger over one particular line in the financial summary. Projected cash reserves, 6 months. It wasn't just a marketing opportunity, it was leverage. She thought about the prom night humiliation, about the laughter that seemed to echo louder than the music, the looks that followed her all the way out the door. She remembered Ryan not looking for her, not defending her, not even calling the next day. People said you had to move on. Claire had moved forward, not on. She started her plan with small, precise movements, thread by thread. Step 1. Control the narrative. She emailed her assistant to schedule an internal brand audit for Bishop&Vale. That meant every aspect of their company's public image would run through her desk before anything reached the client. Step 2. Establish dominance. At the follow-up meeting next week, she would come prepared with 2 proposals. One designed to save them, the other designed to fail. Which one they got would depend on how useful they were to her. Step 3. Test the cracks. She'd noticed tension between Ryan and Megan during the meeting. Megan interrupting him, Ryan rolling his eyes subtly when she spoke. Weak points in partnerships were like loose threads in fabric. Pull the right one, and the whole thing unraveled. That evening, Claire walked to the parking garage with her phone to her ear, making one last call before heading home. "Eric, it's Claire," she said when the voice on the other end answered. "I have a project for you. Discreet work. Background checks, social media digs, the usual. The names are Ryan Bishop and Megan Vale. I want to know everything, financial, personal, whatever you can get without making a ripple. She paused, smiling faintly to herself as she unlocked her car. And Eric, start tonight. By Monday morning, Eric's report was sitting in Claire's inbox, wrapped in a neat PDF like a gift waiting to be unwrapped. She read it over coffee, her lips curling faintly as the details unfolded. Megan Vale's finances were stretched thinner than she let on. She'd mortgaged her condo to buy into the gym expansion, betting big on rapid growth. Ryan, meanwhile, had quietly invested in a downtown real estate project without telling Megan, using funds that technically belonged to their joint business account. So then it was. 2 fault lines, just waiting for the right pressure. At the follow-up meeting, Claire came armed with charts, mock-ups, and 2 versions of the rebrand proposal. She laid the first set of documents on the table, polished, aggressive, the kind of campaign that could pull them out of trouble if they acted fast. "This," she said, tapping the binder, "is your lifeline." Megan leaned forward, eyes lighting up. Ryan gave a cautious nod. Claire slid the second binder forward. Simpler, flashier, but hollow underneath. "And this," she added, "is the safer, more conservative route. Less risk, but less reward." She didn't need to say the rest. Megan wanted bold moves. Ryan preferred control. By the 30-minute mark, the tension was tangible. Megan argued for the first plan, calling it a necessary leap. Ryan pushed back, warning about overextending. Every time he spoke, Claire made sure to meet Megan's eyes. Just a hint of shared exasperation passing between. When Megan excused herself to take a call, Claire leaned slightly toward Ryan. "You know," she said quietly, "sometimes a partner's ambition can push a business into dangerous territory. I've seen it before. People lose everything." Ryan studied her face, uncertain whether she was warning him or testing him. When Megan returned, Claire pivoted smoothly, subtly siding with her instead. It was the smallest thing, but in that moment, each of them left the meeting wondering whose side Claire was really on. That night, she texted Eric, "Good work. Keep digging. I want something personal, something that would make them think twice about trusting each other." Her fingers hovered over the phone for a moment before she added, "Even if it's old, sometimes the past is sharper than the present." Eric's call came just after lunch. "I found something," he said, his voice low, almost cautious. "It's not recent, but it's potent." Claire closed her office door. "Go on." 5 years earlier, Ryan had been quietly investigated by his former employer for embezzlement. The case never went public. No charges were filed. But the whispers were enough to nudge him out of the company with a generous severance package and a signed NDA. The kicker? The money he was suspected of taking had been part of a community fitness grant. A grant Megan had once applied for and been denied. Claire leaned back in her chair, letting the information settle like a fine layer of dust over a forgotten room. This wasn't just financial dirt. This was emotional tinder. She pictured Megan's face when she'd learned that Ryan might have been part of the reason her early career had stalled. Even if the evidence was circumstantial, the seed of doubt would sprout fast. That evening, she accidentally left her phone on the table during a strategy meeting, screen glowing with an open email draft addressed to her lawyer. At the top of the message, potential liability if Ryan Fletcher's past misconduct becomes public. She excused herself to take a call in the hallway, leaving the phone where Megan could see it. When Claire returned, Megan's expression had shifted, calm, but with that tightness in the jaw that meant she was biting back questions. Ryan, oblivious, kept flipping through a spreadsheet. Claire smiled faintly, sliding her phone back into her pocket without comment. By the end of the day, Megan had texted her, "If there's something I should know, tell me directly. Don't make me find out from someone else." Claire typed and deleted 3 different responses before sending, "Meet me tomorrow morning. Just you and me." The coffee shop Claire chose wasn't their usual spot. It was smaller, quieter, somewhere no one from the studio would stumble in. Megan arrived first, hands wrapped around a paper cup she wasn't drinking from. Claire slid into the seat across from her and, without preamble, pushed a single manila envelope across the table. Inside were photocopies of Eric's findings, old HR memos, an anonymized complaint, a timeline that linked the missing funds to the same grant Megan had once chased. Megan flipped through the pages slowly, her eyes narrowing. "You're saying Ryan took the money?" "I'm saying he walked away with a severance package instead of a criminal record," Claire replied. "Make of that what you will." For a long time, the only sound was the hiss of the espresso machine. Then, Megan let out a breath, leaning back in her chair. "I thought you just didn't like him," she said. "I don't," Claire admitted. "But this isn't about liking. It's about knowing who's next to you when the roof caves in." That night, Ryan came home to find Megan in the kitchen with the envelope open on the counter. "What is this?" he demanded. "You tell me," she said, her voice flat. "You didn't think it was worth mentioning?" Ryan's eyes darted between the papers and her face, scrambling for a defense. "It was years ago. It wasn't even proven. But it was enough to push me out of my shot at the grant," Megan cut in. "Enough to make me wonder what else you've hidden." Over the next week, Ryan's presence at the studio thinned to nothing. He claimed he needed space, but Claire noticed his desk had been cleared out. By the end of the month, Megan quietly filed for a change in business ownership. When the paperwork came through, Claire found herself in the studio alone late one night. Lights low, music humming from the speakers. She let herself breathe for the first time in months. The war had ended, not with a screaming match, but with a slow, methodical collapse. Claire had her space back, and this time she intended to keep it. If you like the story, I would be very happy to have your support. Click the thumbs up. And to not miss new stories, subscribe and click on the bell. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and all the best.